Hi, I'm Shan Wu with a undercolor of law analysis of the opening salvo of the resistance against the second Trump regime. So, within minutes of being sworn in, Trump was sued, not once, but 4 times, all over the creation of the DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency, efforts that he and his pal Musk are making. So the honor of being the target of this opening salvo is Elon Musk's brainchild, his marketing ploy perhaps for the cryptocurrency Doge. And recall, it was Musk's idea, right? He floated it in his interview of Trump on his social media platform, X, Twitter, X-Twit, whatever we want to call it these days. That one, you might remember, was somewhat marred by technical difficulties for the world's richest man, kind of like when he tried to have Ron DeSantis do his campaign announcement and never got off the ground. Musk actually claimed that the Trump interview problem was because of a cyber attack. No follow-up news on that. But part of that interview was the idea that Musk wanted to oversee a review of government agencies. Very, very convenient if you want to encourage more billions of dollars in government contracts for yourself, because you can sort of pick and choose which agencies you're going to say are doing a good job. He was soon followed in this pursuit, or joined rather, by fellow tech bro Vivek Ramaswamy. Although Vivek now appears to be on the short end of the stick, perhaps he was the first cut made by Doge. And it seems like he's going to turn his attention now to politics by running for governor of Ohio. Now, Elon seems in a very good mood at Trump's inauguration. He got to give a little speech. And that exuberance, perhaps because of being so happy that Doge is basically now beginning to take flight, that his exuberance really knew no bounds. And his fist pumping couldn't really capture his true inner self and his true joy, as you've probably seen here, but it's worth a replay.
And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
As a side note, there was an amazing lack of mainstream coverage on what obviously looks like a Nazi salute. I pointed this out in my Blue Sky post here. But his Doge project is an appropriate first target for the legal resistance efforts. Lawsuits were filed by different groups, but all along the same theme, which is that Doge violates federal law by being an illegal federal advisory group. In a nutshell, Trump seems to believe he can just willy-nilly create new departments at will. For example, he has talked about a new department. He calls it a Department of External Revenue Service. And Doge itself, of course, uses the word department in its acronym. So the American Federation of Government Employees, the nonprofits, Public Citizen, State Democracy Defenders, were all plaintiffs in this, as well as the Center for Biological Diversity, which sued to compel FOIA disclosures of Doge-related records. And you can see links and information about these suits here. We'll put it up for you if you want to take a deeper dive into exactly what they're asking for and the allegations of what has not been done. So, using just one of the lawsuits as an example to understand what's going on here and what the allegations are, let's take a look at this one. There's something called the Federal Advisory Committee Act, FACA, and it's codified at 5 U.S.C. Chapter 10, and was originally enacted in 1972 to bring transparency into government policy decisions, requiring task forces and advisory committees to comply with giving notice, and even requiring balance in the points of views represented upon such committees. So the idea there is, while there are tons and tons of people who want to give advice within the government, outside the government's such a large entity that a lot of times presidents want to appoint particular groups, task forces of qualified people to opine about this. However, you don't want that happening in the darkness. You don't know who's on there, you don't know what they're talking about. So that's what this law is for. It has to be out in the open. They have to keep records. There has to be transparency as to what's going on. Now, the lawsuits allege that Doge is really the exact opposite of this idea. They operate in complete secrecy. Right now, they're mostly doing all their communications using the encrypted code Signal, which avoids creating any records. And also, the suits allege that there lacks any balance in the perspectives of those who are on the secret committee. So several of the plaintiffs themselves applied to join the group, but they simply never heard back at all. Now, the relief they're seeking basically says follow the law. It includes trying to enjoin the use of Doge until they comply with the law, FACA. And it seeks attorney's fees and costs as well. So it names Trump himself, and OMB, Office of Management and Budget, is the group that would tend to administer this. And they're being asked to make sure that the steps are complied with. Now, I know a lot of folks may feel like, okay, well, Trump just ignores legalities, nothing's going to get him held accountable for this. This is an important distinction. Accountability is really important. We have lost his personal accountability basically in the last administration. But this is what's important about this. While this is a form of accountability, what this is really about is slowing things down and resisting. And it's not resistance just in the sense of let's protest, talk about the fact that it's wrong. These are actual legal steps which manage to utilize both the Congress because of its legislation, and we may also ask them to hold hearings, but it also involves the court system, because as you bring these suits, lower court judges are going to have to start to rule on them. If you win there, if you lose there, it goes up to the Court of Appeals. But these are all things that are going to be affecting how these types of ideas go forward. Most importantly, all litigation, this is civil litigation, not criminal, involves discovery, which means asking for the preservation of records, the disclosure of the records, and all of that helps compel transparency. And you know that we like to see that. Make them do it in the sunlight. That's exactly what the FACA law is all about, which is to let the sunlight come in. The counter arguments, let's watch out for those, and it would be eventually headed towards SCOTUS, which is a bad place to go, but just so we know what the counter arguments are, is there will be controversy over whether the statute itself, the law, is unconstitutional because it infringes on presidential authority to do whatever the heck the president wants to do. That is going to be a constant refrain with this regime. Now, interesting bit of history. When President Clinton took office, he put the First Lady, Hillary Clinton, in charge of a sweeping task force to look at health care reform. That effort was also hit by FACA lawsuits. And initially, they lost on that point, but eventually the Court of Appeals ruled in favor of that task force continuing its work based on the idea that FACA didn't apply to that task force because the First Lady, while she's not an actual federal employee, was a de facto federal employee. So let's watch for that. Maybe it's one of the next litigation defenses we'll see put up by the MAGAs. No, not that Elon Musk is the de facto First Lady. So good to see you. We will be talking to you very soon, and there's going to be a lot to discuss. So let's keep those replies and comments coming, and I look forward to talking to you again soon about topics, so many topics that are going to be important to cover.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.